Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending this evening's webinar. My name's Talia Newton. I am the Climate Emergency Project Officer at Shire Council, and I'll be your MC for tonight's webinar. I'd like to start tonight by acknowledging the Bunurong and the Gunaikurnai peoples as the traditional owners and custodians of the lands and waters that I'm on, and I'm sure many of you live and work on as well. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, as well as Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be joining us tonight. If you are joining us from anywhere else in Victoria, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, and you can also acknowledge the country that you're joining us from. Tonight's webinar, Summer Comfort, is part of a series of webinars that Bass Coast and South Gippsland Shire Councils have partnered with Renew on across 2024. Renew have been working in the sustainability space for over 40 years. They're an independent, not-for-profit body with a mission to inspire, enable and advocate for people to live sustainably within their homes and communities. This webinar, as well as all the webinars, will be recorded and made available on the CAP, the Community Action Portal, for future viewing. The first 8 webinars we've held in our Sustainable Living series, covering topics such as solar, home batteries, electric homes, electric vehicles, winter comfort and sustainable building and renovating, are already available to watch online if you missed those live events, and we'll put a link to those in the chat. The 2024 Sustainable Living series is designed to equip you with the information and knowledge to make your homes more comfortable, energy efficient, cheaper to run, and more environmentally friendly to live in. Now, without any further delay, I'd like to welcome our expert presenter for tonight, Andrew Redaway. Andrew is an energy analyst who's been involved with Renew for 10 years, helping households with independent energy advice. He's also worked for the Australian Energy Market Operator, the Australian Energy Foundation, and NHAR. He is trained in solar installation and is a certified passive house designer. Welcome, and over to you, Andrew.
Thanks a lot, Talia, and welcome everyone. Great to be back on another webinar again, and it's a very topical topic. Sorry, that's a bit of a weird combo there, but so we're just starting summer, so there's going to be a lot of hot weather coming up, and everyone's always interested in how to get through the summer as comfortably as possible. So we'll be looking at energy usage in the home, thermal performance, cooling, hot water, and other stuff. So the focus is on summer, but actually quite a few of these things do double duty. If you're improving something, it can help for both summer and winter. All right, energy usage in the home. So we've got a standard pie chart over on the right here. And what's the quote that there's lies, damn lies, and statistics? Was that from Winston Churchill or something? Anyway, as with any statistics, this is not just like an average picture. So we've got heating and cooling accounting for most of the biggest part of the energy consumed in the home, like 40%. Then we've got water heating, other appliances, fridges and freezers, and then it goes down, lighting, cooking, etc. But households vary an amazing amount. So you've got some households that run whole house ducted air conditioning like 24/7 they've got the thermostat really low to try and keep the house cool in summer, and or same in winter. So that number could be bigger. On the other hand, you've got people who don't have aircon or they don't use it much, and in which case that would come down a lot. Water heating, how long are your showers? How many showers do you have? So those two factors can just imagine like a frugal a single person living at home compared to a big family with lots of teenagers that are playing sport and long hair, and so massive difference in how much hot water gets used, even before we get into the efficiency of the appliance to heat the water. Some people cook all the time, baking and preserving, and other people never cook or barely. So these things can swing a lot, even before we get into things like, specialist IT appliances or swimming pools or, So there's just, anytime you look at these stats, treat it with a grain of salt and think about your actual situation, because it can vary a lot. Yeah, and actually just one here is even lighting. So if you've got a house that has, acres of ceilings with downlights and the old style halogen downlights, then they get really hot and they use a lot of power. So on average, lighting doesn't use much, like especially with modern lights as LEDs. They use a lot less, but yeah, there are some people for whom lighting actually does use a fair bit of energy. All right, let's have just a quick look at an electricity bill. So here's like a sort of typical generic sort of power bill, and some notes on it. So note number one. So this is just your summary of what you're paying. So that's fine. Then the tariff, the plan name. So that's number two. So these days, there's all sorts of plans that you can choose, even from the same retailer, and there's heaps of different retailers that you can choose from. So, having an idea of what sort of plan you're on, and going and asking for a good deal and shopping around, that can make a big difference to how much you're paying. Concessions, if you're relevant to any sorts of energy concessions, then definitely get onto that. Distributor. So the retailer is the company that's sending you this bill. So that could be AGL or Origin or Energy Australia or any of the galaxy of different retailers out there. But you do not have a choice on who your distributor is. So in Victoria, it depends on where you're located. So down around the Bass Coast, it would be AusNet, AusNet Services. So that they own the poles and wires, and that's they're the ones to call if a tree's fallen on a power line or something like that. And a component of what you're paying in your bill is what they are charging to your retailer, and the retailer is passing it on to you. And that's not only just the daily supply charge, like a $1 per day or whatever. It's also the energy component. So that's cents per kilowatt hour. So part of that is coming from your poles and wires company as well. Usage comparison and history. So there's some information here about how much electricity that you've been using. So sort of averages, typical averages for Victoria around the 12 to 18 kilowatt hours per day, I guess. But as I said, I've seen bills up to 50 or 80 kilowatt hours a day or even more. So and down to maybe 5 or in kilowatt hours per day. So it can vary a lot. So how do you check up on what's your best deal? This page is for every state except Victoria, Energy Made Easy. In Victoria, we have a different website, which is provided by the Victorian government, and it's the Victorian Energy Compare website. Yeah, here it is. So it's good to go with a government one, because that's going to be an unbiased and comprehensive source. If you go with like most of the commercial comparison websites out there, So some of them are pretty good, but a lot of them, they make their money by getting payments from the retailers to be listed. So they may only be showing you the retailers and the plans that are actually paying them for the services. So you might not get the full picture. All right, thermal performance. So keeping the heat out, because we're talking about summer. So yeah, heat flows where there's a temperature difference. So it goes from a hot thing towards the cold thing. So this is a rough picture. So the roof is generally one of the biggest sources where heat can come into a home. So yeah, 25 to 35%. So through the roof, through the ceiling, into the home. Windows are a big one for summer. So 25 to 35%. Again, all of these are just averages, right? Homes can be very different from each other, and we'll get into that in more detail. So the main thing with windows for summer is if they're facing towards the west, because you get the summer sun, it's going to set west and southwest. So anything from sort of west to south, when that sun starts to get a bit lower in the sky, it can be those sunbeams can be beating directly through the glass and into the home. So yeah, 1 meter of glass, 1 square meter in full sun, that can be like having a little heater going. So if you've got several, meters of glass and where the afternoon sun can come in, then that's like having several heaters going in your home, and obviously not what you want in summer. Walls as well, so heat just soaking through the walls. Floor, sometimes. So obviously, if it's a concrete slab, not so much. It can radiate in from the sides and everything. And infiltrations, that's talking about air, like drafts and leaks, and we'll come back to that as well. Oh yeah, this is talking about with specifically with timber floors. That's why it's 10 to 25% potentially. Like, there's some you've probably seen some older houses with timber floors, and you can actually see through the cracks in the floorboard sometimes. So yeah. Star ratings. So you're probably familiar with star ratings on appliances like fridges and washing machines, that sort of thing. Homes also can have a star rating. So if they're if a house is being built, or if it's been built recently, then it would have been assigned a star rating. So if you're building a new home now, then it's it has to have a rating of at least 7 stars. So it's gone up from 6 stars. It sounds pretty good. If you get in an old home, it could be anywhere from 1 to 3 stars. So you can just see the difference here between a 3-star home and a 7-star home. So the 7-star home is only using, what's that, about a third to a quarter, about a quarter as much energy would be required to heat and cool that home. It's a Melbourne example. So now one of the asterisks with this is that the standard that exists now, like the 7-star or the 6-star previously, it's based on the design of the home. So the drawings of what its layout is and how much insulation it's got, all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, there's no one actually checking after the home is built that it performs to the standard that it was designed at. So yeah, it's possible that the builders may have, and their subcontracted tradies, that they might have cut a few corners here and there. The ceiling insulation, maybe they didn't quite get out to the corners of the roof. They didn't get all the insulation in, or maybe the insulation was put in, but then the electrician came later and had to install something, and they've moved the insulation out of the way and haven't put it back again. Or maybe maybe it's a lot leakier than was expected, for air leaks than what the standard expects. So a 7-star home that's designed to 7 stars, it may only perform around 6 stars, maybe. So yeah, that's one proviso. But yeah, basically newer homes should be a lot more energy efficient than really old ones, just because of the way they're designed and the features that are built in, like better insulation, wall wraps, like those you probably see on building sites. So they have often blue-like material that's going around the timber studs, that kind of thing. All of that can help a lot. So just as another example, so this one on the right here, passive house. So that one is a totally different standard. Comes out of Germany, and it's only voluntary. There's no one like enforcing that for homes or other buildings. But with that passive house standard, it achieves better performance at a high comfort level, and it is actually tested. So if you get a passive house certified building, then it will be you can have good confidence that it actually will perform to that level. It's more intensive than going for a 7-star home. You'd need some specialist builders and designers as well. But yeah, just to give you an example of basically what's possible for energy consumption. Now, existing homes, so you probably don't have one of those star ratings on that Natters scale that's done for new homes, but you can get a assessment done on the residential efficiency scorecard. So this is where an assessor comes in and visits your home in person and goes around and checks a whole bunch of things and puts that into a software package. And you, as the resident there, you can get immediate feedback and key recommendations and an emailed report later on. So that's pretty good. And one of the good things about this type of assessment is it's not only considering like the structure, like the walls and windows and insulation and all that stuff. It's also considering appliances. So if you've got more efficient appliances, then that would help to provide a better score on that scorecard measure. So here's an example, of what a scorecard looks like. So we've got categories including heating, cooling, lighting, hot water, spas and pools. Okay, insulation. So the picture here is a standard insulation bat. So, it's probably 490, 450, a bit less millimeters wide and probably 1.2 meters long. And the thickness can be anywhere from, skinny up to quite thick. So ceiling insulation is the first priority usually. And if you've got access into your ceiling space, then it's relatively easy to install as well. Now, you do have to be careful if you're installing insulation by yourself, because up in the roof space, that's it's a place where you have to be fairly nimble and agile, and if you step in the wrong place, you can put your foot through the plasterboard or fall right through the plasterboard and into the room below. Potentially there's electrical wiring that may have been damaged, and the heat, if you're up there on a hot day with the sun beating on the roof, that can be life-threatening actually. So I don't do that unless you're confident and really know what you're doing. In concept it's simple. It's just like putting a blanket. Like if you want to stay warm at night, you put a blanket on. If you get caught in a bushfire, then that radiant heat, you want to stop it. If you can hold up lots of blankets, that would help keep the heat out. It's the same with your home basically. So if you're looking for like a typical sort of rating, this comes in R values. So R5. So that's, say, about 250 millimeters thick sort of thing, would be a good sort of starting point for ceiling insulation. And really try and avoid having gaps in there, because it's like it's not just a proportional thing. It's more like when you have a hole in a bucket and yeah, just small holes, like gaps in insulation. That's where the heat is going to seek out and sort of bypass your insulation. In walls, then 2.5 would be a fairly sensible kind of rating to go for, and that can be achieved in a 90 millimeter thick wall bat, which is it's the right thickness to go in between a standard timber frame wall. Okay, floor insulation, several options. And yeah, also with the roof insulation, you can see here there's this silver foil type stuff there. That's good in summer as well at helping to reduce the amount of heat that's radiating down from the tiles or the color bond downwards. So yeah, a lot of people don't realize, but so if you've got silver foil, it's good at reflecting heat away, but it's also very good at not passing the heat out. So yeah, that's why you typically would have your foil on your shiny side on the bottom. If it's right under your roofing material, you have the shiny side on the bottom, facing an air gap. And because yeah, if you've got something pressed up against it, then okay, it won't be radiating the heat, but it'll just be conducting the heat through whatever that is. Okay, this is what I've just mentioned. So yeah, some scary kind of warnings and things. Okay, windows. So this is a picture through a thermal camera. So it's picking up heat as an image rather than just light, like a normal camera would. So the red areas and the purple areas are showing up as really hot. So this is a picture that's been taken in winter. So so the outside of the walls are fairly cold, but the glass on the windows is relatively warm, and because that heat is soaking out through the glass, because yeah, just glass, it doesn't stop much. It's pretty much almost sort of no insulation value. Even if you make it thicker, like go from 3 millimeter glass to 5 millimeter glass, it doesn't matter that much. It's still pretty terrible as a way of stopping heat flow. And yeah, even though this picture's in winter, like the same thing applies in reverse. If it's a 40-degree day outside and you're, say, I don't know, 25 degrees inside, then you're going to have heat flowing through the glass, like conducting through and into the house. So window coverings can be very effective. Yeah, well, the first priority for summer is don't have the sunbeams like hitting the glass directly. So shading, there's all sorts of options for shading. So this is just a rule of thumb. So if you've got no shading on the glass, then you could have 800 watts per square meter, or even a bit more, I would say. So yeah, that's equivalent to like a small heater, personal heater sort of device. Double glazing reduces that, and there's different grades of double glazing as well, actually. So if you are looking at doing double glazing, normally it's expensive to do. So normally you'd only consider it if the windows are at a point where they need replacing anyway. So yeah, if you are going for double glazing, then I'd say consider not only the glass itself, but also the frame, because you can have really good glass, but it's going to be compromised a bit if you just have a plain aluminium frame, because aluminium is super good at conducting heat. So that heat can be going through that area of frame. But yeah, with double glazing, it works by having an air gap, so it's hard for the heat to get through that air, especially if it's still air. Like if you've only got a fairly skinny gap, then it's not going to have air currents. So yeah, it's going to reduce the amount of heat going through. But even the best double glazing, you only get up to an R value of about 0.5, I think it is. So it's still a lot. It's still nowhere near as good as a timber stud wall with those insulation bats in it. So yeah, it's not the be all and end all double glazing, but it definitely makes a difference. Drapes, curtains. So yep, that can make a big difference as well. And there's window films that you can apply. And yeah, light shading. So all of these are really applying to direct sunlight on a window. So double glazing isn't going to help that much for when you've got sunbeams like shining straight on the glass. But the direct sunlight is one factor, and then the other factor is, well, even if the sun's gone down, like it can still be 40 degrees outside and 25 inside, and that heat is still going to soak through. And that's where the double glazing will help more. It's better at stopping that heat transfer just from hot air to cold air. Yeah, of course, you can have trees, you can have pergolas, blinds, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, the sun is high in summer and low in winter. Well, yes, except in summer, like when the sun goes down, obviously it's low as well on the west, sort of southwest. Yeah, there's temporary solutions, shade cloths, like clipped up on gutters. That's one of the traditional, like simple and easy options. Cheap screens that you can put up, that sort of thing. Yeah, range of options here. So what they're talking about here with this picture is a north-facing window. So having an eave is, yeah, if you don't have any eave at all, then even a north-facing window, the sun can be hitting that glass. But to stop the summer sun, you just need a bit of an eave, not too much eave or anything that like hangs out over the window. If you have a bit of an eave like this, like a moderate eave, then it allows the winter sun to come through a north-facing window, which is great because in winter you want all that light and warmth that you can get. So that's for north-facing windows. Unfortunately, it's not as eaves are not as good for east and west facing because the sun is going to be low in the sky and it'll go under the eaves anyway. Right, various external shading options, shade cloth, traditional blinds. Yeah, the shade cloth pinned clipped on the gutters, various other fancy options as well. Thick curtains properly installed. Yep, pelmets. I think we'll come to pelmets. If we don't, I can mention them or ask a question. Honeycomb blinds, they're a more modern option than the traditional curtains with pelmets. So honeycomb blinds, they're like blinds that retract up. But the thing is, when the blind comes down, it opens up into little air pockets. So that's better at stopping the heat than like a traditional blind or just a thin piece of material. Yeah, we talked about double glazing. Oh yeah, there are ways that you can achieve double glazing without replacing the whole window by basically putting an extra sheet of glass or more likely plastic. You have to be a little careful with that, maybe because you can get condensation. Like if you just put an extra sheet of plastic, for example, then when the air gets cold and it loses its ability to hold as much moisture, then you can get that condensation dripping out in between the two panes, and then that can build up and lead to problems. But yeah, it certainly is possible. Gaps around windows. Yep, that's. I think we'll come back to drafts. So there's a whole bunch of options for draft sealing. Okay, so pelmet is one of these items that hangs over the top of the curtain. So the reason that works is if you don't have a pelmet and you just have a curtain in front of the window, then you have air circulating and it'll create its own little circulation, and just because of the temperature of the air. So in summer, say, if you've got heat coming in through the window, then you'll have warm air in between the window and the curtain, and the warm air is going to go up like a hot air balloon, and it's going to suck in some colder air from the bottom. So so you've got the curtain there, but the heat is sort of bypassing it with this air current. So pelmet helps to stop it. Having the curtain go all the way to the floor also helps to stop it. And there's various options. There are DIY things, there are boards, or a range of things you can do. Here we go. Some renter-friendly options. Thick curtains. You can improvise plywood, cardboard, etc. for a pelmet. Yeah, the old bubble wrap on the windows that we've got here. Yeah. So it can actually look reasonably good, and this option doesn't look quite as good because it's got some wrinkles and folds in it. But it can actually look okay. And you maybe you wouldn't do it in your living room, but if you got some windows that you don't really need a nice view out of anyway, then that can work pretty well. All right, draft sealing. So you can. A lot of Australian homes are incredibly drafty, and that's often measured in terms of air changes per hour. So how many? If you compare like the volume of air that's coming into your house and leaving it, compared to the volume of air that's in the house itself, like it may amount to totally replacing the amount of air in your home many times per hour. So that's obviously going to defeat a lot of the benefit. If you're cooling that air in summer with your air conditioner, then you're sort of fighting a losing battle if you're trying to cool air which is constantly leaking away, right? So what can you do? Well, covering, if you have wall vents, it's a bit of an old-fashioned thing from the era when you had kerosene lamps and wood fires, and just to ensure that the ventilation was good enough to cope with those combustion products. Like if you're burning stuff inside the house, well, we still burn gas a lot of the time for cooking, etc. But so that's another factor to consider, and I think we'll come back to that. But yeah, so those old wall vents that you see sometimes up on the wall in older homes with just a bunch of little sort of holes in it, in most cases they can safely be filled up or covered over. Gaps under doors, around windows, gaps between floorboards. If you've got an old fireplace that's not being used, then there are ways you can plug up that hole, because otherwise, it's massive like air leak basically. Skylights can have a lot of vents and holes around them. Just in passing, like the skylight also creates a big hole in your ceiling insulation, so that's another downside. If you've got ducts and grills for evaporative cooling or even for aircon, there's some leaks involved in that. Around plumbing or air conditioning plumbing, all that kind of stuff. Even gaps you can't really see, like just skirting boards and things. it can all add up. So yeah, there's a bunch of DIY options like silicone caulking, gap sealer, little rods of like foam that you can push into gaps to seal it. There's a whole bunch of things you can do, either DIY or as a bringing in a handy person or a draft sealing person to help you fix them up. Can you go too far? Okay, so if you get really into this and you go crazy on your draft sealing, are you going to suffocate yourself in your own home? Probably not. If you live in a normal home, then even if you try really hard, there's still going to probably be quite a lot of air leakage, uncontrolled air leakage. Usually the issue is more about too much air leakage than not enough. So but okay, here's what could happen. Like if you did manage to make it super airtight and you're not really considering the ventilation aspect of it. So if it's super leaky, then you're going to have poor health and comfort because you're going to have drafts and uncomfortable temperatures. If air can get in, then insects can get in as well. That's another thing. Okay, we make it more and more tight. Okay, it's pretty good. Let's make it more tight. So you go and make it, you seal up all the gaps. Okay, so now it's performing a lot better for the temperature, for the heat transfer. But on the other hand, if you have managed to seal it up too tight, then it can be stuffy. It can lead to condensation. So the water condensation that can lead to mold and rot. So with traditional sort of building methods, that's the sort of trade-off that you have. If you make it super tight, then you get these downsides. And I mentioned Passive House previously, so they've actually solved this problem. So you don't have to have that trade-off, and how they achieve it is by controlled ventilation. So if you have a passive house in southern Victoria, then you can heat and cool your whole house with just a bedroom-sized air conditioner, and they have like just small ducts that are continuously cycling air around the house. And one location where the warm, let's talk about winter. So the warm stale air gets exhausted, and the cool fresh air comes in. And as that warm stale air is being exhausted, it's giving up its heat to the cold stale air that comes in. So you end up with controlled ventilation, and the best of both worlds. You get great fresh air, but you also have the health and comfort aspects and the thermal. So if you happen to be building a new home and you've got the ability to look at something a bit custom, then it's possible to avoid this trade-off. But otherwise, then you probably are looking at a fairly normal home. Try and improve the air leakage so it's not, it's at a reasonable level, and use probably air conditioning for summer for heating, and we'll come to that. Okay, thermal mass is another concept. So that's basically if your house warms up on say a hot summer day, and then a cool change comes through in the evening. That often happens on a real hot summer day. How long is it going to take for your home to cool down just naturally? Like, okay, so if it's mostly timber, like timber frame and some plasterboard, then it'll probably cool down reasonably quick. If it's double brick, I don't know how many of you have had this experience. Like if you've been in a double brick home, and you've gone through a heat wave, and then the weather cools down, but the house still stays hot for like days afterwards. Yeah, that's what thermal mass is. So brick, concrete, water, they absorb the heat, and then it takes them a while to release the heat again. So is it helpful? Yeah, look, when you're in a climate where you've got sort of hot days and cool nights, then yeah, having some thermal mass can be an advantage, because it's going to even out the temperature of the house over the day. It's not going to, get boiling in the day and then cold at night. So yeah, some thermal mass can be useful. Okay, cooling appliances. So here's a bunch of different options. Let's start on the right. So fans. So we've got a ceiling fan here, like a desk fan, like a port fan you just plug into a power point. So yeah, they're effective. They work well. They don't necessarily do an amazing job if it's a real heat wave and it's over 40. Then just having the fan blowing on you might not be enough, but it can definitely help. Evaporative cooling. So this is a bit of a traditional solution now. So so they've shown the evaporative cooling unit on the roof there. Some air conditioners are installed in the same kind of way. So just because you see something on the roof, it doesn't mean it's definitely evaporative. So the way this works is it's like if you have one of these fans blowing on you and you were wearing wet clothes, you're going to feel a lot colder than if you're wearing dry clothes, right? So that's how this works. It's got stuff inside which has water going into it and then drying out as fans blow air through it. So it's using that evaporative cooling and then using that to cool air which goes through ducts around the house. So it can be quite efficient in how much electricity it uses, but there are downsides because it uses a fair bit of water. But the main thing is it only works by having airflow through the house. Like you're evaporating water to make sort of moist air, like humid air, which is then blowing through and then has to go out of the house again. So you have to have your windows open or your doors open. So yeah, look, my sort of take on it is that yeah, it can be very effective in most cases, but if you've got a really humid hot day, then it's that evaporative effect isn't going to work as well if the air is already moist. And if you have a real heat wave where you've got mid 40s and that continues for day after day, then most people are probably going to want something more than that, something more effective in those conditions. So that's where air conditioning comes in. So air conditioning is probably nowadays it's the best kind of default heating and cooling appliance. I'm talking more about the modern ones here, like this old style through the wall or through the window. That's less efficient. That's really a sort of old-fashioned thing now. Yeah. So air conditioners, like, just make sure you get one that can heat as well as cool. Most of them can. And then you've got one appliance which can it can keep you cool in summer as well as warm in winter. And in Victoria, actually, we use more energy over the year in heating than we do for cooling. So in terms of cost to run over the year, it's the heating to really focus on. But having said that, like if you do have a heat wave in summer, then that can be a big priority as well. So they're basically very efficient at cooling, or heating. So like if you go back, say 20 years ago, there was a lot of media about like how air conditioners were putting a big load on the electricity grid, and that's true, they can. But the modern ones are a lot more efficient than those were, say, 20 years ago. And yeah, they're better than the alternative basically for heating, and they're good at the cooling job, and you can run them without opening the windows. So like especially if you want to cool down like one room, say you're working from home for a whole day, then yeah, if just maintaining a comfortable temperature in one room in a heat wave, you can do it pretty well with a small one of these, like a bedroom sized unit. There's portable air conditioners as well. So these are the ones that you just plug into a power point. Yeah, they're not quite as good as the ones that you install as a split system, like we just saw. But yeah, if you're renting, for example, or you just need a temporary solution, then they're pretty good. They're okay. Okay, so talking about how would you choose an aircon unit? So yeah, larger for living areas, small for bedrooms. So for living areas, you might be looking at 7 kilowatts, 10 kilowatts. Now, on those ratings, that's not talking about how much power it draws. It's talking about its heating output or cooling output, so how much energy it's delivering. And if it's rated at 10 kilowatts of energy delivery, it's probably only going to draw, say, 2 or 3 kilowatts of electrical power. And it sounds like that's, going to break the laws of physics and we'll go get sucked into a black hole or something. But yeah, they can do it. And because probably don't have time now to explain, but it's basically moving heat from one place to another rather than creating it or destroying the energy. Yeah, go for a reputable installer, like especially if you get an actual experienced tradie to come out and do a quote, then they can often be fairly creative about the location for the outdoor unit, for example. And yeah, try and go for the split systems rather than lots of air ducts. If you've got lots of air ducts in between the outdoor system and the indoor outlets, then yeah, those ducts have efficiency issues as well. Star ratings is the main efficiency to choose for the product itself. So for a bedroom size unit, you can get up to 7 stars, and for the living room size units, you probably only find up to about 5 stars. Okay. All right, general tips. Only cool the areas that you need to. Ceiling fans have a summer and a winter setting, so normally there's a little switch on the body of the unit somewhere. So you probably have to get up a ladder if that's safe for you. And yeah, it'll be more effective if it's spinning the right direction for summer or winter. Cool yourself instead of the room. So yeah, if you can use that evaporation effect locally, or you have small fans locally, that can work well. Be aware of what's going on with the weather. So if that cold change has come through in the afternoon, then yeah, go and open all the windows and exhaust out all that hot air and let the cool air come in. Hot water. Now, in the interest of time, I might go over this reasonably quick because it's a little bit not quite in the sweet spot of the summer the summer topic. I mean, we do use hot water in summer, but not as much do in winter. So basically, I'll just go through quickly. You can get energy efficient shower heads that use less water, so that way you're saving energy and you're also saving water too. You can have shorter showers, of course. You can put insulation around hot water pipes if they're available under the house, for example. And if we're talking about the appliance that you're using to heat your water, then This is just a comparison between one that burns gas to heat up the water and one that uses electricity in a heat pump hot water system. So the heat pump hot water system can use a much more efficient process, and it doesn't use so much electricity. If we're talking about the old style electric hot water system, then that would be probably up here somewhere. It wouldn't be too far. It wouldn't be using much less energy than the gas would. In fact, in that case, the only difference really would be that with the gas hot water heater, it's basically got a little gas fire under the water tank, if we're talking about a gas storage. And so when you've got that gas fire, then some of the heat's going into the water, most of it, but some of the heat is going to go up the chimney, up the flue. So it's not as efficient, right? With electricity, if it was the old style, it would be 100% efficient. If it's a heat pump, then it's, say, 450% efficient, depending on the unit. So here's an example of what I'm talking about with a heat pump hot water unit. So two different options, but in both cases, they have this fan unit involved, as well as the tank full of hot water. So that's really doing the same job as an outdoor unit on a aircon. Other stuff, so descriptive. Lighting, yeah, go LED. Okay, go LED, that's pretty simple. Some LEDs are better than others as well. And some LEDs, like downlights, you can, some are rated to have the ceiling insulation right over the top of the downlight. With other LEDs, they're not. So you still have to have a gap in your ceiling insulation. So if you're looking at putting in LEDs, then I'd definitely try and go for ones that allow you to have a continuous insulation in your ceiling. Appliances, I've mentioned the star rating already. So just one thing to be aware of is that if you see an old appliance, maybe you've got a fridge in your house from 20 years ago and it says 5 stars, and you walk into one of the retail stores and you see a new fridge that says 5 stars, they're going to behave, they're going to use different amounts of energy because the standard has been tightened up over time. So your new fridge at 5 stars will use a lot less energy than what your old fridge at 5 stars does. So normally it's been sort of blocked out and just said XXX because this is an example here. But there'll be a number that tells you how much energy it actually uses per year based on typical usage of the appliance. So if you're comparing old appliances and new appliances against each other, that's the best way is to look at those numbers. Is it 300 kilowatt hours? Is it 500 kilowatt hours? So if it uses less energy, then it's obviously better. And this is, talking about how those standards have changed over time. So pool pumps, go for a variable speed pump. So it's only working hard when it needs to. That's for doing the filtration, etc. Standby power use, most appliances are actually not too bad these days with standby power. Like the modern electronics has tightened up on that a fair bit, but there's still some devices, like I think some coffee machines can have like a heating element that goes all the time if you don't actually turn it off with the wall. So just still be aware of it. Okay, resources. We've got the Your Home manual. Sorry, this page is the one to use. BU upgrades program, so that's got some discounts on products. Home energy assessments that we just mentioned, the residential efficiency scorecard program. Mentioned that electricity retailer comparison. I think it's gas too. Yeah, it's gas. Sustainability Victoria is around. And Renew has information as well. And there's Solar Victoria. So there's a whole bunch of information there. Okay, alternatives worth mentioning. So this is, so solar thermal hot water. So I've been talking mostly about heat pump hot water as being the sort of default option to go for. So these days that's normally the case. Solar thermal hot water it's still a valid option. It's just been overtaken a bit by heat pumps in most cases. With the solar thermal, so that's really just taking that sunlight and using it to heat up the water sort of directly. Some have the tank up on the roof above the panels, some have the tank down at ground level, and it circulates with a water pump. So what are the downsides? Well, one is that it's taking up roof space that you could use for solar electricity, solar panels. And the solar electricity can be used to heat your water, but with an electric heat pump or old style electric. And the electricity is a lot more versatile. You can use it to run your house or charge batteries, charge a car, export to the grid, all that stuff. Whereas this is a one-trick pony. I mean, it's actually efficient at making use of that sunlight energy, but only until the tank's full. Heated up fully. If it's a sunny day, then the water tank is going to be heated up before lunchtime, and then the rest of the day it's a waste of space on your roof, basically. It's also getting harder to find tradies to work on them, so that's another consideration. Okay, talking about heating, this is a slide on hydronic heating. I might skip over this because we're talking about summer, but basically it's pretty hard to find tradies who will install hydronic heating using electricity rather than gas. Okay, special cases. All right, so I've been talking about heat pump hot water system as a good default option for most households. One downside of the heat pump is it's a relatively high upfront cost. So if you're a household that uses a lot of hot water, then that's going to pay for itself fairly well. If you're a single person who is fairly frugal with your hot water usage, and then if you were to pay the money for a heat pump installation, it may be hard to justify that economic upfront cost if you're hardly spending not much on your ongoing hot water usage anyway. So yes, energy is important. Yes, the environment and the climate is important. On the other hand, we also have cost of living and economic factors that are important for most people. So so this is a potential niche case where an instantaneous gas hot water heater may be more viable once you consider the economics of it for someone who only uses a very small amount of hot water. Heat pumps. Okay, so another factor there is that space somewhere on your property, almost certainly at ground level, for a hot water tank. And if you're in a townhouse with tight access down the sides and there's nowhere to put the water tank, then the solar thermal can, if you get one with a water tank on the roof, well, that's a neat way to get around that problem, other than using gas. So again, talking about gas here is if you really have specific cooking requirements that you've tried the induction cooktops and they just really don't work for you, and you need to burn some gas for your cooking, then there's options there. You could have you could get bottled gas for your cooking. You could have your induction cooktop for most of your things and then have just that one specific burner for your wok cooking or whatever it is, connected to a barbecue bottle. And so that would enable you to get off the mains gas and save that supply charge of having that gas connection, which could add up to a few $1,000s over 10 years, for example. So, yep, that's an option. And if you're off grid, if your home has no connection to the electricity grid at all, usually that's when you're living way out in the sticks, and having the grid connected, the bill you were quoted was, tens of thousands of dollars to actually get the wires extended to your home. If that's the case, then yeah, it's a bit of a special case, and you probably some of what we're talking about here doesn't apply that much. But actually, the energy efficiency probably applies even more, because if you're needing to supply all your energy yourself with solar and batteries and potentially diesel generator or petrol generator as well, then yeah, it's probably going to make sense to go even harder on the draft sealing, insulation, efficient appliances, all that kind of stuff. Okay, that's the end of the presentation. So I think it's time to go to questions. Is that right, Talia?
Yes, thanks very much, Andrew. That was great. Really good tips in there. I'd just like to add as well, I know that you mentioned the Your Home website as a resource, and I know they have some information on calculating the depths of eaves for like the shading of windows.
Yes.
So I thought that's a really good resource. I'll put a link to it in the chat. Probably a bit harder to retrofit on an existing home, but if anyone's building a new home, it's something to factor in. There are a couple of programs that I'd just like to quickly mention before we get into the Q&A. Home energy kits. There are thermal imaging cameras that are available to borrow from our local Miley libraries, as well as home energy and water efficiency kits. There are also induction cooktops that are available to borrow. So if you're thinking of getting off gas cooktops but want to sort of try before you buy, it's a really good option. Bass Coast Shire Council residents can also access the Solar Savers program. So Solar Savers is a local government initiative, and it's helping households and businesses install quality and affordable rooftop solar, batteries, and they have quite a lot of other options, heat pump, hot water systems, that sort of thing. They have been running since 2019 and have supported the installation of a lot of solar PV systems in Victoria. We'll put a link to more information about those in the chat. We've got probably about 20 minutes available for questions. So if anyone does have questions, please put it into the Q&A now, and we'll endeavour to get to you. There are some there already. So we might get into those now, but feel free to add more as we're going along. The first question we've got for you, Andrew, is, are you familiar with the magnetite alternative product for double glazing? Do you know if it's an affordable alternative to double glazing windows? It says especially on opposite sides of the house where most heat or temperature exchange occurs.
Yes. I am familiar with the magnetite double glazing product. It's been a while since I looked into it. So I think it's basically like a PVC pieces of glass, and they have like magnets around the side that you can put magnets on your window frame and attach it. So that is an effective option, and in most cases it'll be a lot more affordable than having your windows replaced, the whole frames and everything. It's not going to be as effective as like replacing your entire windows with ground up double glazing, but it certainly would help. And especially on the opposite sides of the house. So I'm thinking this is like the east side and the west side, where you're more likely to have heat gain from the sun or on morning and afternoon. I'm guessing what that means by opposite side. So it's a reasonable option. Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, thank you. And with that, you mentioned that aluminium isn't the best as as a heat conductant
Mm.
for window frames. Do you have a material that you recommend or that you think's best?
Yeah, there's a few options that are a lot better than plain aluminium. So the old-fashioned timber window frame is really good at not conducting heat through the frame. Has the downside of being higher maintenance than aluminium, like especially on the outside of the window where it gets the weathering. So another option is you can get frames which are aluminium on the outside and timber on the inside. So you sort of get the best of both worlds then. So that's an option. There's also window frames they're aluminium, but they have like a layer of plastic in the middle, so that provides a break that the heat can't conduct through as easily. So it's another one, thermally broken aluminium frames. And the last one is UPVC, which is like a type of plastic window frame. They're really popular in Europe, and they're used a fair bit up in like high country Victoria as well, actually. And they're pretty good. I mean, since some people don't like the idea of plastic as a material, but that's an option as well.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure it has its place.
Yeah.
The next question is around different colours of roofs. In our area in particular, do you think it's better to have a lighter or a darker coloured roof? Obviously, lighter colours would deflect the heat and help with, I guess, prevent absorption of heat in summer. But if you have a darker roof, is that better to absorb the heat in winter, given our climate?
Yeah, well, at some point in the presentation, I mentioned like how in southern Victoria, like in general, like our homes use a lot more energy for heating over winter, spring, autumn than we do for cooling in summer. So if you were just looking at quantity of energy that you're using over the year, then you might go, dark roofs are the way to go. However, if you do have a heat wave, then that can be pretty severe. And even if it's not a real heat wave, even just hot days in summer, like you really don't want to have that heat coming down through the roof. So I'd probably go for light color ceiling, actually. And light color rooftop.
Yeah, I guess ideally with the insulation that you would have in the ceiling cavity, I wonder how much difference it would actually make.
That's a very good point. Yeah, if you got good ceiling insulation and maybe also some reflective layer under the roof material, then it's not going to matter so much whether it's a dark or a light color roof. Oh, and the other option is if you have solar panels on a lot of your roof, then that's going to be another layer that some of that sunlight that's hitting the solar panels is getting converted into electricity instead of heat. And even the amount of heat that does get into the solar panels, at least you've got that air gap under the panels. It's another layer for that heat to get through. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Next question. For the level of investment in double glazed windows, you seem to indicate there is a very low effectiveness in terms of the R insulation ratings. Is it better to focus on pelmets and multi-layered curtains?
Yeah. To be honest, I don't really not like that slide so much. I'm not sure where that slide came from, but I'm pretty sure it's specifically talking about the case where you've got direct sunlight hitting the glass. And yeah, for that case, yeah, double glazed windows, they're going to help a bit, but they're not going to help, a major amount. But in terms of if you want to solve the problem of sunlight hitting the glass, the best way is to block it on the outside, blinds, vegetation, screens, whatever you can, roller shutters. There's lots of different options. Where the double glazed windows really help is all of the other situations. So when it's hot out, where the air is hot outside and the air is cooler inside, it's stopping that heat soaking through the glass. And so that's going to be happening like a majority of the time, right? Even and the sunlight hitting the glass is only going to happen at those times of day in those seasons of year when the sun actually is doing that. So I think double glazed windows are worthwhile, but yeah, it's just that thing of it's going to be very expensive if your windows don't happen to need replacing. So you probably wait until that time to bite the bullet on the double glazing, I think. And and they're going to help in winter a lot as well, like to help stop that heat from leaking out through the glass all through winter. So but is it better to focus on pelmets and multi-layered curtains? Well, is it better? Well, the big downside with any of these things like curtains and blinds and honeycomb blinds is that you can't see through the window anymore. So how important is that to you? If it's a bedroom or I don't know, some storage room or something, maybe it doesn't matter. But if it's your living room and you've got a nice view, then yeah, having a solution which allows that natural light and that view, but also be energy efficient is pretty attractive.
Yeah, thank you. The next question is around the sort of building assessments. Do you think it's likely in the future there'll be more checking and auditing to ensure that design reflects the actual energy efficiency at the end of the build? And if homeowners get their new build assessed or they get a residential efficiency scorecard, is there any way they can hold builders accountable to that 7-star rating that you mentioned?
That's a good question. I really hope that the regulations get tightened up there. Yeah, it seems crazy to me that like the rating is only on the design and then there's no testing afterwards. Is it going to happen? Well, the state governments and federal government have a track record of really dragging their heels on ramping up the energy efficiency standards for homes. So it took a very long time just to get from the 6-star to the 7-star. It was a pretty small incremental change.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's probably and there's other things that have happened like with the requirements for renters. So it was only recently that it became mandatory to have heating appliances, for example, and ceiling insulation for renters. So yeah, it's slow to get that progress. One thing that would make a big difference would be something that they already have in the ACT, which is mandatory disclosure of home energy ratings. So that's if you're selling a home or if you're renting it out on a new lease, then you have to tell the person who's buying it or leasing it what the energy rating is of your home. So you have to get an assessment done.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer because you're not allowed to you're not allowed to sell a new fridge or washing machine or something without a star rating. So why should you be able to sell a home without that? it's an asset that's going to be there for many decades, and has a major impact on people's cost of living and health and comfort. So yeah, it's governments. What can I say? They've got a range of stakeholders that they have to try and keep happy. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Were there other parts of that question? Sorry, I'm not sure if I covered.
Oh yes, so maybe if homeowners were to get their new build assessed or a residential efficiency scorecard completed,
Yeah.
is there a way that they can hold the builders accountable for the 7-star rating if it doesn't meet that standard, I suppose they're saying?
That's a good one. Don't think the residential efficiency scorecard would actually hold up for that purpose, because it's got an advantage that it considers the appliances as well as the structure, but then it means that it's not directly addressing just the builder's job. So I'm not sure that'd be so suitable. But if you got a test on the actual structure, that to what extent it met that NATHERS rating, that's the National Australian Thermal Energy Rating, star rating, like for a new home that's built. Yeah, if you got that assessed, then yeah, I would say you might have a case. Yeah, like if it was clear that like it was meant to have wall insulation and there was no wall insulation, and you could show that. Air infiltration, like draftiness, that's another area where the regulations are quite inadequate, because the assessment sort of assumes a level of air leakage, but it doesn't actually put a specific requirement on the builder to do it, to ensure that the building is only going to leak a certain amount of air. There really should be mandatory tests on that, because it's not too hard to do. What you do is a blower door test. So there's a blower that gets used, like a special one, like a big fan thing that sits in the doorway, and you tape up the door with like plastic and tape and stuff, and you turn on the blower, and it blows air into the house, and it blows in until it raises the air pressure in the house a bit, up to 50 pascals, and then it measures how much, what the flow rate is of air into the house when you've got that pressure difference. So if you're doing a passive house build, that's what they do. And while they're doing that test, the builders people are on site, and they're going around and finding the air leaks while the test is going. So they've got their little bits of string that are fluttering, or their fancier devices to see where the leaks are, and they're going in and sealing up the leaks like on the fly as the test is going, until it reaches that required like level under the passive house standard, and then it's done. But yeah, so it'd be great to have that for all homes, but yeah, it's just the building industry and the pace of regulatory change is unfortunately really slow. And yeah, like there's been politicians who recently who've been saying, oh no, we're going to freeze any changes to the building code, because cost of living, like we're not going to do anything that might increase the price of houses. But it's really short-sighted to just focus on the price of the house, because it's not going to increase the cost of the construction much, just to have some tests and seal up some gaps. It's not going to be a major cost, but the savings over the lifespan of that household for all the occupants, that's massive. So yeah. There's a lot of short-term thinking going on, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we've just got one final question. You're referring to older style vents in houses that have higher ceilings, maybe older houses. They've said, in my house, you can see the outside vent through the inside vent. I understand these were important in older style homes for ventilation, but heat occurring from internal heaters would just go up and potentially through the internal vent to the external vent. Is
Right.
covering the internal vent, especially in winter, when you might want to use energy efficient heating to warm up particular rooms. Is that something that's sort of effective?
Yep. Yep. Totally. Yeah. You've basically got a hole straight through your wall in terms of like air transfer. The only sort of thing to watch out for would be if you are okay. There are some types of gas heaters, right? Like your normal. Okay, so you've got like these wall heaters, right? That's like it's a gas heater that goes up against the wall. Most of them have like a chimney, like a flue. So when you burn gas inside the home, it's a fossil fuel, and the stuff that comes out in the gas that you've burned is not healthy. So if it's going out a flue, out the wall or out the ceiling, so those combustion products from burning the gas escape out of the home. That's what you want. There are still some homes that have wall heaters that burn gas and they don't have a flue. So the combustion products are going into the air in your room, okay? Unflued gas heaters. So
Right.
if you have one of those, then be wary about blocking up that vent in your wall.
Yeah.
Or if you happen to be burning kerosene lamps or oil burning heaters or whatever that is, right? But if you don't have that specific situation, then yeah, go for it. Like seal up that wall vent because it's just a hole through the wall, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you've got a house like that, then you've probably got lots of other gaps around all the skirting boards and power points, like the holes in the power points, and air can go through. And there's so many leaks in most houses that you're not going to have a problem. Yeah, unless you've got that one specific sort of issue there with actually burning stuff that doesn't have a chimney.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the thermal imaging cameras that you can borrow from the libraries are pretty good at picking up those leaks too. All right, so that's all the questions that we'll have time for. Thanks very much, everyone, for your time tonight. I hope that this has been informative and helped to answer some of your questions around, comfort in summer and home energy efficiency. Just like to say a big thank you to our expert presenter, Andrew, for lending his expertise and experience for the evening. As well as John from Renew for his behind-the-scenes tech support. Just like to remind you before we close tonight that the final webinar in the 2025 Sustainable Living Series is running tomorrow night at the same time, and it's a very similar topic, summer comfort for renters. So it'll be more towards low cost and easier changes that you can make. You can register for that webinar on the CAP. We'll put a link to that in the chat for you as well. And just a final reminder that this webinar has been recorded and it'll be posted in the coming weeks on the CAP. So you'll be able to find this and all of our other recordings there. Thanks again for your time and attendance, and hope to see you all again soon.
Thanks, Talia. See ya.
Thanks, Andrew.